Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our fourth of six webinars that Seniors Action Quebec is putting together. And I'm delighted to see such a great turnout and honoring your commitment. And we're delighted to have three experts of different aspects to fraud and scams with us today. So there will be presentations, and following each presentation, there will be a 10-minute question period. And Katia will be taking the questions from the chat box. So as you think of a question, type it in the chat box. She will organize them and then ask that presenter of them. As you know, we ask you to keep your microphones closed. And before we proceed any further, I would like to thank our funders for making this possible. And that's the Secretariat des Québécois d'Expression Anglaise and Éducaloi. And without further ado from me, I'm going to introduce our first presenter, who is Kenneth Melo, who is the Senior Branch Manager at the BMO in Kirkland. And Ken has been a bank employee for the past 20 years, and he's been a leader now for 18 years, managing 8 branches along the way across several markets on the island of Montreal. As a manager, he's extremely passionate about providing financial guidance and extremely proud to work at the BMO. And he leads his team to ensure that they provide an exceptional customer experience, customer service, yay, guidance and advice to all as they have the privilege to interact with. The experience that he's obtained over the years has helped him to guide others to achieve their financial goal, whether it be in investments, borrowing, or day-to-day banking. I can vouch for that because I had not met Ken before my first conversation with him, and he actually helped me with some of my financial transactions, and I'm making more money, so that's a good thing. Apart from being a BMO manager, he's also the father, a proud father of 2 beautiful children who are 8 and 3. And he's also, I take my hat off to him, a foster parent for the last 9 years to a young lady who is now 14 years of age. He's been born and raised in Montreal, and he now calls the West Island home. And when time permits, he enjoys volunteering to help others. And he does that, so he's supporting in particular the West Island Community Shares organization. And he keep a nice work, personal life balance. He also has passions and enjoys camping with his family and playing golf. So Ken, thank you once again. This is your second go round for us, one back-to-back months. And I know we're going to get a lot of great information on what the bank can do for us if we get scammed in our bank accounts or credit cards, whatever. And I look forward to hearing your presentation. So it's all yours.
Thank you, Ruth. Does everyone hear me? Awesome. Yes. Thank you again, Ruth, for the unbelievable introduction. I just want to come to these meetings for that, to be honest. But so today we have a very important topic to talk about. I'm very glad that we have 3 speakers to talk about fraud and scams because it's a lot more pertinent this day and age, especially during this time of year. It's where our credit cards come out the most, our debit cards come out the most. We're doing a lot of shopping online, at the bank, in the stores. We're out and about. So specifically this time of year is very, very important to be more safe. So as Ruth had explained, I mean, I've been at the bank for 20 years and I've seen the evolution, okay, of fraud over the past 20 years. And today it's very easy. Unfortunately, it's very easy to become a victim of a fraud or a scam. So what I'll try to do today is basically help you identify certain issues. I'll share some stories of what I see, how I can help you protect yourself. But before going that, I'll go into a little presentation that I prepared. So if Katya, if you want to maybe show the presentation. Perfect, thank you. So we'll just go into the next page. So basically in the agenda today, we're going to just talk about, again, recognizing fraud and fraud types of scams that are currently occurring right now, and review also the 3 stages of the fraud journey. So I'll have you click on the screen. So basic things. So I'm just going to go over a couple of definitions. What is fraud? So remember, fraud is something intentional. Okay, it's a misstatement or an omission designed to deceive others, resulting in the victim suffering a loss or the perpetrator achieving a gain. So examples include loan fraud, deposit fraud, payment fraud, synthetic identity theft. So anyone who can commit anyone can commit a fraud. Okay, it could happen. Believe me, I've seen people 15 years old to 5 years old commit fraud. So it could happen to anyone. You know, it can be something you don't know. An individual, could be an organization, your local grocery, for example, or it could be a highly organized crime group. Scams, on the other hand, scams are a pathway. So basically, fraud is the act, and scam is how it's achieved, right? So basically, you could get a fake job offer or a call, a text to actually do something. That's the scam. That's the root. Okay, this could include like tax scams, job scams, and also romance scams, which I'll talk a bit further on in the presentation. Next page.
Two seconds, Ken. It's stuck.
Okay.
I'm just going to stop sharing and I'm going to reshare.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. Hold on. I'm going to try one more thing. Just trying to figure out why it's sticking. It was working before. So, technology. Okay.
While Katya is working on that, somebody has their microphone open. We ask that you close it.
Okay, Ken, we'll do it like this, okay?
Sounds good.
Okay.
All right. So continuing with the definition. So basically, we talked about the fraud, we talked about scams, and then obviously you have a fraudster, right? So these are just basic definitions of different terms. So the fraudster is obviously the person who actually is committing the fraud, right? As simple as that. Other things that we want to look at, and maybe will be talked about later on, is cybercrime. So cybercrime is an illegal act involving computers and networks that is often a predicate event to a fraud. So it involves business email compromise, phishing, ransomware, malware, and stuff like that. This is basically on your computers. If you go to the next page. So, in particular to the banks, okay, what do we see often, or what do we deal often with is these 3 things. Basically, identity theft. So we have perpetrators coming into the bank with stolen ID, okay, and they have a different picture. They have a picture of themselves on a fake driver's license, Medicare card, whatnot. And what this person is trying to do is coming into a bank and opening up an account, getting a credit card, applying for a line of credit based on someone else's information. Okay, we see this often. And believe me, we have to have a very keen eye at the bank because they're getting very, very professional when it comes to making these fake IDs look very, very real. So these are things that we deal with very often at the bank. So what happens there, basically, we also have like new account fraud. So occurs when a new account is fraudulently opened as a result of the true name or a synthetic identity theft. So basically, like I was saying, the client opens up an account using fake IDs and then basically is taking over someone else's identity and could do pretty much not everything you want, but he could do a lot of stuff that the real client will not even know is happening. You also have account takeovers. So basically occurs when a fraudster gains access to a customer's account to steal the customer's ID or information to execute fraudulent transactions. So rather than coming into the bank to open up an account, the client could come in to a bank and say, oh, I lost my debit card. I need to replace it. So he comes in with, again, fake IDs that are very, very well done. We give him, the client gets a new debit card and then has access to your online banking and things like that. If you go to the next page, Kathia. So I'm going to go back basically to what I was talking about before. With the bank, you look at this and you're saying, wow, okay, so what is the bank doing to ensure that my information is safe? Now, as I said, I've been at the bank for 20 years, and it's without question that every single quarter, okay, so every 3 months or so, the bank comes out with a fraud training that every person at the Bank of Montreal needs to complete. Okay, there's a test at the end, and it's not just about clicking and getting through the thing so you don't have to. No, you have to do an exam at the end of each of these training sessions, and you have to get a score of 80%. So it's not just a pass of 60; you have to get 80. And we feel obviously that fraud is extremely important, and we have an important role at the banks to play to help coach our clients not to be victims of fraud. Because like I was saying earlier, it's extremely easy nowadays to actually become a victim, even with just a click of a button. It's that easy. So again, what we do is we ensure that all our employees, all our branch staffs are trained on a quarterly basis, and sometimes even more when there's a new type of fraud or new type of scam that we've become privy to. The bank will then create some type of training to advise all our employees. We also get constant communication by email with respect to fraud cases occurring in the area. So as Ruth had mentioned, I'm part of the West Island, right? So we're a market of 19 branches. So whenever there's a fraud that occurred in a branch in one of our 19 branches, we share with each other. We share photo IDs, we share emails, we share the story, just to make sure that this client cannot go into another branch in that specific area and do the same thing. Now, my area is vast, right? I go all the way from Cornwall to Côte Saint Luc, right? So what happens after? So the client could go somewhere else in South Quebec, North Quebec, whatever. So then it gets shared over to the divisional level, that then gets feeded out to all the other branches in Quebec and the rest of Canada, to be honest. So we know the importance of fraud. We try to limit it on a daily basis. And to be honest, it is something that we have to deal with on a daily basis. It's not, it's our new reality, put it that way. Like I work in a bank, and like the days of, the armed robberies and stuff like that, they don't happen anymore. It's so much easier to actually fraud a bank or a client by trying to get them through cyber attacks, which I'll discuss right now. So basically, a couple of things to look at in cyber attacks. You have something called social engineering. Criminals might form a relationship with you online through social media platforms to trick you into doing something you normally wouldn't. This one right here, everyone, is extremely important because we all have our cell phones, we all have our computers, we're all either on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, whatever you want to call it, Twitter. We're all on these social media applications, and this is where a lot of these frauds and scams occur. Okay. We also have email phishing. So most of us have emails. If we're on this call today, I'm sure we have an email address. Email phishing occurs when an email includes an attachment that is infected. Okay, so when the user clicks on the infected attachment, it installs and executes a malware. So the attachment could be like a picture, it could be a Word document, spreadsheet, whatever. But you click, as soon as you click on it, you're putting your whole information in danger. So if you don't, so my advice to you with respect to this, with respect to email phishing, if you don't recognize the email, dump it, delete it. If you don't even bother opening it. But I know it's tough. Believe me, it's tough. We're probably getting tons of emails every single day. But I mean, if you open up the email, fine. That usually doesn't impact you. But as soon as there's links to click, be very, very, very careful about opening these things up. If you don't know it, best thing to do is flush it, delete it. Okay, my advice to you. Then there's also malicious websites, right? So basically, it occurs when a website is created for a hosting malware, or it could be a legit website that has been compromised by a hacker. I'll give you an example of this. Recently, what we've been seeing at the bank is clients receiving texts. And the texts say, oh, your account has been compromised. Please go on bmo.com, for example. Here's the link to basically to fix the issue. So the client will click the link. It's going to a pop-up is going to show up like the BMO website. Okay, very, very similar to what the BMO website looks like, and it's going to ask you, please enter your debit card information and your password. So the client thinks it's legit. We'll do that information. We'll put it in. Next thing you know, the client's information is compromised. It's a fake website. And basically now the hacker has the client's debit card information and password. What they do with that afterwards, it all depends how quickly the client reacts, okay? And we'll talk about that further on, about the importance of making sure that once you become aware of an issue, you advise your institution right away. Kathy, up for next page, please. So here's just a list of information, okay, that you would be surprised to know that fraudsters, scammers look for. You would think, it's like like I was saying, that your account information, your debit card number, but funny enough, this information that I listed on this page is extremely valuable to them. And you'd be asking yourself why? Because you know what? A lot of our passwords sometimes are based on this information. So what do they look for? They look for your full name, particularly the middle name, date of birth. Often that's extremely important because unfortunately we still use our date of births for a lot of information, like our passwords. Look at hometown, your relationship status, okay? So why do they look at relationship status? Because there's something called a romance scam that occurs, and I'll explain a little bit to you about that afterwards. Looking for your occupation, who you work for, your school location, graduation dates, again, source of passwords, pets' names, okay, and other affiliations and interests and hobbies. Again, they look for a lot more information than that, but this A lot of people don't even realize that this type of information they're looking for. Next page. So types of scams. Now this, again, I'm using 3 scams here, but there's a lot more than this, okay? But these are the ones that we see quite often, especially at the bank. So basically, I'll talk about 3 tax scams, romance scams, and loan scams. Next page, Kathia. So tax scams, okay, it comes in many forms. So it could be over the phone, text, or emails. And I wouldn't be surprised if some of you on the phone, on this call actually, have received one of these calls before. So basically what it is someone that's impersonating a government agency, and they call you to say, oh, you owe back taxes for the year 2018, for example. You owe $5,000. You need to pay up right away, or you face penalties and potential prison or jail time. We see this quite often. I've got that call myself. My mom has got that call herself. So I know that it happens, okay? Again, you have to remember something. Government agencies like the tax agency, the banks, legitimate agencies will never ask you to send money or do something that you will normally do. First of all, most of the time, we're gonna if it's a serious issue, we're gonna basically contact our clients through mail, okay? Written letter, signed, coming from a legitimate organization, not by text, not by phone, okay? Not even by email. Email is supposed to be used for quick communication about certain issues that are currently ongoing, but an initial type of scam, initial type of interaction always is done by mail, letter, by like I said, your bank or the agency. So basically, as I mentioned here, tax. So what you need to look for, legitimate government agencies will never ask for payments via prepaid credit card or gift card. Okay. Why I say this? Because what happens a lot of the times is these scammers will say, oh, you know, to make payment, just go purchase this gift card and then send it over to us. You know, and these things, it doesn't make sense, you know, but sometimes, unfortunately, we get lost, you know, we get confused, and we're just scared for outcomes of how they tell you you're going to be facing jail time or penalties. They're going to ask you to collect or distribute payments through e-transfers, okay? You know, banks and government agencies, we're still quite old-fashioned. We still like checks. We still like, you know, bill payments, stuff like that. E-transfers, we're not going to ask for payments by e-transfers. I'm sorry, that's not going to happen. Government agencies as well. They use text messages to communicate. No, the bank is not going to communicate to you by text message, okay? And so will not the tax agency. They're going to ask, so if they ask for financials via email, that's a no-go. Do not share any information, like I said, through email or text with any organization, okay? Don't ever provide financial information via email. Now, it will with respect to banks, okay, we do a lot of loans and things like this. Normally, we like the client to come in to the bank to bring their financial documents. We need to get them a loan, but it will happen sometimes when it's an email. Just make sure that the email that the person you're dealing with, you know, they share you their email with their business card, right? Before you actually send everything off to confirm that the email is correct. You could even call. Picking up the phone, everyone, is a very simple way, you know, to limit the fraud and scams. Call your bank, call the government. If you're not sure of something, before you do anything, pick up the phone and make a call to find out if it's legit. Okay, simple as that. Next page. Okay, next, romance scams. Another one that I've seen quite a bit of, like, for example, clients that are on Facebook, okay, or different social media applications. People will reach out to you to ask to become friends, okay? And again, they'll look at your relationship status, and they'll see if you're single, divorced, widow, and then use that information to try to get something out of you. Okay, so it occurs when a fraudster targets individuals and lower their defenses by taking advantage of their romantic and compassionate side. They often use legitimate and fake dating sites. Once the fraudster has charmed the intended victim with photos and messages, they will start asking for them to send money for various reasons. After receiving the money, the fraudster often disappears. Okay, so I've had clients come into the branch, tell me that they've lost thousands of dollars because someone on Facebook said that you know they want to come to visit. They've been talking for, and this thing could last months. The fraudsters been talking for months, you know, and basically getting the trust from the victim, unfortunately. And then once it's the victim is basically completely trusted the fraudster, that's when they hit, and that's when they ask for money. Either something like, you know, I'd like to come and visit. I'm in the U.S. I'd like to come and visit you in Canada, but I don't have the money for the flight. Right, so it's $2,000. Can you help me out? I'll pay you back things like that. Stay away. Okay. Stay away. If you don't know someone on Facebook, you know, my recommendation is don't even bother. Don't even bother accepting him as a friend. If you go to the next page.
Ken, if I can remind you, you're about 4 minutes overdue.
Okay, so I'll make it very quick. Actually, you know what we're going to do is we're going to go down to the bottom on page 14, Tatsia. So very quickly, how to protect yourself, okay? You have to know that you could lock and unlock your card and report it lost or stolen through the BMO mobile app. Most banks have the same, okay? If you've lost your card or you report it stolen, you could lock it right away, okay? A click of a button. Report a lost or stolen card as soon as possible. Whenever possible, use a chip technology card. Monitor your accounts for your transactions you don't recognize. It's very important to go into your account at least a couple of times a week, you know, see if everything looks normal. Very quick and simple. Protect your card by keeping it in a safe place and never leave it unattended. Keep your PIN safe, everyone. Do not have your PIN in your wallet with your card, okay? Never use personal identity information, okay? Sign your card upon receipt. Make sure your signature is on your card. We actually double check that. Never use your card number online over the phone unless you know you're dealing with a legitimate company. Avoid using public computers or Wi-Fi to conduct banking online transactions. Okay, there's a lot of information that I missed, and because I could talk about this for hours, but we have two other speakers too that are probably gonna, you know, pick up on what I had already mentioned. But rest assured, okay, I want to make sure that everyone understands that the bank is here. Your bank is here to protect you. You know, don't be surprised, okay, that if the bank asks you personal information, you know, and we're here to protect your money, your interests, right? So I know it's a difficult line when sometimes we're asking too many questions and the client's like, well, it's my money, you know, I can do what I want with it. But take it, if you hear a lot of questions coming your way by your banker, just remember that we're actually doing this to protect you, to make sure that that you're not being frauded, because it's so easy nowadays. I just want to make sure that everyone understands that we're here to protect. Speak to your bank, call your banker if you have any other questions that you want with respect to fraud. Sorry for going a little bit over, but I think it's very important that we cover a lot of these aspects. Thank you, Ruth.
Thank you, Ken. I'm sorry to do that to you.
No problem, no problem.
Now, I hope people, if they had questions, you put them in the chat box, and Katia is going to pull them up, and she will be asking them of Ken. And then right after that, we will take a health break. But instead of it being 10 minutes, I'm going to suggest 5 so we can get back on track. And Katia, it's all yours.
Thanks, Ruth. Hey, Ken, I'm sorry about technology being weird today. There weren't too many questions, but I'll get the ball rolling. You were talking about online banking and how people can stay safe. Do you have any other tips for people so that they can stay safe if they do online banking?
Yeah, well, one thing, and I'm sure you've seen this before, your password is extremely important, okay? You don't want to make it simple because basically, if they get access to that password by unknowing that you put your date of birth, your address as, for example, it's a lot easier for people to get into your bank accounts, okay? Now, rest assured though, that like I said, the bank does protect against fraud, okay? So if you are a victim of fraud and you're basically had, like, for example, $1,000, $2,000 removed from your account because it was a fraudulent transaction, the bank will cover you, okay? It's called an unauthorized transaction, okay? So if there's proof involved where you had no idea what was going on, you are covered. But on the other side, if, for example, your card was stolen and your PIN was in your wallet with your card, you know, there's a bit of responsibility that the client needs to also take on. Don't leave your PIN with your card. Don't make it easy for these fraudsters to get information. But so password, make sure it's a strong password. Your debit card, you know what? If you have an old debit card that doesn't have a chip on it, it's extremely important you get it changed. There's a reason why we have those chips. It's there for your protection, okay? And I still see, unfortunately, cards with clients with cards that are like 5 years old, 10 years old. You know, they rarely use them, but they don't have the chip. If you don't have the chip, please go to your bank and get it replaced right away. And again, like I mentioned before, validate your transactions. Go on your bank account every couple times a week, and just to see, is everything normal? Is the balance still the same balance you remember it was a few days ago? You know, and like I said, the faster we catch on, the better it is. So act fast.
Great. A question came up, which I think is an interesting one. If I need another coffee. If people get what appears to be fraudulent emails or texts that appear to be from a bank institution that they don't belong to, can people contact that bank saying, hey, by the way, I received this, I'm just flagging it to you, even though I'm not a client of your bank?
Yes, you absolutely should, because what we do is when we get emails or calls from clients or non-clients saying, I received this email, I ask them always to flip it over to the bank, and we have a department, a fraud department also within the bank, that will receive those emails and try to understand where they're coming from, you know, to see if they could block them going forward, you know, and limit the amount of fraud that are occurring. Absolutely. I'll share a little story, actually. I had a client who had someone fraud his account. Okay, they went into his account. They took $17,000. This is recent. Okay, $17,000, and they paid a TD. Sorry, I'm not going to talk about banks. They paid another credit card for another institution. The client didn't know what the hell was that, right? And he's like, I never made this payment. And we talk with each other. I know someone at the other bank. I called them. I said, can you double check? Does this make sense? Who's the client on this credit card number? And obviously it was a different client altogether, right? So I said, can you block the account? But it was the client that had to call, basically to advise the institution, hey, I never made this payment, you know, do what needs to be done. Then on my end, I was able to retrace it and get the money back. So again, acting fast, and basically just making sure that we communicate, even if it's not with our bank that we're dealing with, for sure.
Okay, great. So I was just looking at the time. Ruth, do you want to
one last question? I think there was one about does the RDIF?
Yes. That's why I was asking. Okay, so Ken, there's one last question, which I think is a good one. Someone was asking about the RFID holders, which are supposed to be those special little envelopes that you can put your credit card or debit card in, and it keeps them safe from being scanned. Do they work?
They do work, but remember, they work for tap. Okay, it's specifically more for the tap situation. So you have these fraudsters out there, you know, that will come around with like a little machine, and they'll go in your butt area and where your wallet is, and they'll try to get you get your credit card or your debit card so that they could tap $200, and get that from you. But if you have that envelope, it does protect you from that.
And just one just to loop together, where can people get those envelopes if they want them?
At the bank. So you could have you could actually, myself, I have my wallet has that integrated in it. Okay, so you could actually purchase wallets that have that protection. If not, you could go into your local branch and you could ask for these envelopes. We have them in stock. At least I know we do, but your other bank should also have.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Katia. We are going to take a 5-minute break, and I'm going to ask you all, well, yeah, it's about 5 minutes, not quite, to come back at 10:45, and that will put us right back on schedule. And then we're going to hear from the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre and Stephanie Senecal. So stretch, grab that cup of tea or coffee, and we'll see you back sharp. And keep your mics closed if you don't mind. Thanks a million. Well, welcome back. I hope everybody had an opportunity to stretch. I hope your mics are closed. And we're now going to go to our second presenter. I noticed there was some messages in the chat box. Yes, this event is being recorded. You may have missed it at the opening. And the link will be sent to each of you within about 2 to 3 days. And also, I've got permission from Ken, since we had to rush him along and there was a few slides that you weren't able to see. If you email me, I'm not going to automatically try to do a massive mailing, but if you wish to have Ken's presentation, if you email me, I will send that out to you so that you can read it at your leisure. So without further ado, I want to introduce our second presenter, Stephanie Senecal. And Stephanie is the Senior Support Unit Coordinator for the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre. And we're going to hear about everything that they can do for us, but very briefly, she's got an interesting bio. I've spoken to Stephanie, and I can guarantee you, you're going to have a lively presentation. You're going to have the straight goods, and I know you're all going to be delighted. So Stephanie originally thought she wanted to be a flight attendant and travel the world. Soon after receiving her diploma for travel and tourism, she started working for Via Rail, where she soon realized this was not meant for her and moved back to her hometown in Sturgeon Falls, Ontario. Quickly after returning home, Stephanie was the assistant manager to a newly built Comfort Inn in Sturgeon Falls. Stephanie changed jobs and worked at the Information Center in North Bay as travel and tourism was her passion. Once her contract was over, she applied for a team assistant position at Community Care Access Center, where she built her confidence and knowledge and was there for 10 years. And if people in Quebec don't know, that is an equivalent to our CLSC, Local Community Service Center. As Stephanie is always looking for a challenge and to better herself, she applied for a position with the Ministry of the Solicitor General in the Freedom of Information Office. A few years passed and Stephanie realized that she missed helping the vulnerable population, and she applied to the call taker at the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre to be a call taker. Being able to help is very rewarding. People are so grateful, and this makes my heart smile. Sorry. This past April, the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre requested that she become a senior support unit coordinator, and a position that she feels is the right fit for her. Stephanie loves change, craves challenges, and is a busybody. In her spare time, she enjoys spending time with her family, hunting, fishing, camping, building fires, and stargazing. One day she will make that trip to see the dancing northern lights. She loves the life and lives the life to the fullest. So without further ado from me, Stephanie, I'm going to turn it over to you. And thank you for doing this for us.
You're welcome. So I am just going to not share my face here while I do the presentation, because I want you to concentrate on the presentation and not my nice smile. Okay, so Canadian Anti-Fraud Center. So what we do is we help people, so the presentation will help empower you to recognize, reject, and report the fraud and lessen the chances of you falling victim to a fraud. So we are jointly managed by the Ontario Provincial Police, the RCMP, and the Competition Bureaus of Canada. So the Canadian Anti-Fraud, we are a central repository for fraud information for citizens and businesses. So we do not conduct any investigations, but we support law enforcement to identify the connections all over the world. So if you've been a victim of a scam, fraud, or cybercrime, we ask you to contact your local police as it's their role to investigate. So we here at the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center, we disrupt the crime, strengthen the partnership between the private and the public sector, and we maintain Canada's economy. We assist law enforcement by maintaining a central database of information to assist with their investigations. So it's estimated that less than 5% of fraud is actually reported to the Canadian Anti-Fraud. So how to report fraud? So you can go on our website, www.antifraudcenter.ca, or you can call our toll-free number, 1-888-495-8501. So in 2021, the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center received almost 500,000 calls and 132,000 online reports with a total loss of $164 million. And as of December 31st, 2021, the Canadian Anti-Fraud reports that the total loss was $379 million. So I was just looking at this a few months ago. So as of October 31st of this year, the total reported loss is already $420.8 million. So we know that fraud is on the upward. So how are people contacted? So fraud can be initiated by telephone is 42%, email is 19%, internet 14%, social media 13%, text message 10%, and door-to-door and mail would be 1%. So telephone, they use auto dialing, robocalls, spoofing, and delayed disconnect. And I just want to talk about delayed disconnect just for a second. So that is when the fraudsters call you. They can claim to be from your financial institution saying that your credit card's been compromised. And if you say, no, I don't believe you, they'll say, fine, hang up, call the number on the back of your card. So, you know, we hang up, we rush, we go grab our card, we call the number. But what's happening here is that they're actually staying on the line. They can stay on the line for probably up to 5 minutes. So we suggest that if you are to call out to verify the legitimacy of a call that you've just received, please wait a minimum of 5-10 minutes before calling out, just to make sure that the line's actually been disconnected. So this can only happen to landlines. So if you have a cell phone, you're safe. Spoofing, that is when the fraudsters showing you what they want you to see. So they will not make the telephone number that they're calling from appear on your call display. They will show you a different telephone number or a name of a company or organization. It could be law enforcement. And this can also happen to email. So email spoofing. So a way that we can recognize if an email has been spoofed is if you take your mouse and you hover over the name of the company, like where it says from, you'll actually be able to see the actual email address that they're sending the email from. So know that companies usually have domains. So domain would be like, for example, here at the Ontario Provincial Police, my email is stephanie.senecal@opp.ca. So Canada Post, Amazon, any organizations usually have their own domain. But just be careful because fraudsters can try to copy that domain. So I'll just use Canada Post as an example. It could be, no reply at canadapost.ca, but the fraudsters will use the no reply at canadapost.ca, but they'll hide an extra A in there. So just make sure that you look for spelling errors and formatting errors in the email or in the content of the email, okay? So fraudsters will send automated emails, and they can also gain access to your email address. So that would be email compromise. So on the internet, we have search engines. So that's like Google, for example. So the people will use search engines to search for whatever they're looking for. So I'll use Dyson as an example because that's something I just looked at. So you click Dyson in Google, it pops up. So fraudsters can pay to have their website show up on the top results. So just be careful again that you are on a legitimate website, okay? They can also use pop-ups. They can also do advertisements for jobs, rentals, animals, discounted items, they can create fake websites as well. So then we will go to social media. So social media, they can use media bots. So that's like fake news and advertising that show up on your Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. They can also take over accounts, send messages when they take over the accounts to your contact list. It could be a lot of things, it could be that they want you to invest, or they have gotten a grant and they believe that you would be eligible too. They'll send you a link. It could be used for blackmail. It could be used to let you know that they saw your name on a prize list and so on. So text messages. So this is usually a phishing, like Ken said earlier. So text messages from companies, it could be your financial institution, it could be the government, it could be Canada Post, it could be Amazon, Netflix, and so on. They want you to click on the link for various reasons. So either to unlock your account, and I'll go through this a little bit later. And then we have a door-to-door. So this doesn't happen often, but it still happens. So it could be somebody coming to your door wanting a donation for breast cancer, for example. Or it could be contractors wanting to repair your roof, change your furnace, do duct cleaning, or they could be selling items as well. I know back in the day, the most popular one was, vacuums. Let me come into your home and show you how this vacuum works. So they will use high pressure sales tactics as well. So step back and think before you sign anything, okay? And then mail. So it's only 1%, but this has happened to me actually, but they can use, fake templates, stolen templates from legitimate organizations or lawyers, or, it could be Reader's Digest saying that you've won something. So just be cautious of that as well. Look for spelling errors and contact the number that you are familiar with. Never contact a number or an email that is provided to you by somebody that may be a fraudster, okay? So now I'll go through the different types of scams that are happening to seniors. So the top 10 scams for seniors. So we have investment scams. So any false, deceptive, misleading, or fraudulent investment opportunity, often offering higher than normal or true monetary returns. Victims often lose most or all of their money here. So the most popular ones would be the pyramid schemes or cryptocurrency. So this usually starts by seeing an advertisement and you download a platform, then you transfer money into a cryptocurrency platform, and then it is moved to the fraudster's account. So what happens here is that when the victim wants to withdraw money, they're unable to withdraw money, and the fraudsters ask for additional fees to be able to withdraw the funds. So in most cases, it would be, taxes or lawyer fees or service fees. But even if this money is paid, you will not get your money. So in 2021, we had 487 reports with 449 victims with a total loss of $38 million. And then we'll jump to romance scams. So fraudsters will use any type of social media or dating sites to connect with their victims. The accounts are created using stolen photos and information. Their background stories often mimic the victims. They're usually working abroad, they're the military, and they're very successful people. They'll quickly profess their love to gain the victim's trust, affection, and money. And these relationships can last for months and even years, and usually ends when the victim has nothing left to give. So the fraudsters will always run into trouble and are unable to refund their victims, but they'll continue to make empty promises. So the money is needed for medical bills, flights, they need to pay a fee and a large sum of money there to receive. Or it could be to invest and have a worry-free future together. So again, like Ken said, these fraudsters will look on your social media and see if you are widowed, divorced, or seem lonely. Those are the people that are targeted. Then we will jump to extortion scams. So extortion happens when someone unlawfully obtains money, property, or service from a person, entity, or institution through coercion. So an example of this would be the SIN scam, where you receive a recorded message, a call, advising you that your SIN has been used in fraudulent activities. So the scammer claims to be from a government agency and advises you that your SIN's been blocked, compromised, or suspended. There may be threats of arrest or jail time if you don't cooperate. So the scammer may ask for personal information such as your date of birth, social insurance number, driver's license, and address. They will ask you to empty your bank account and deposit the funds in a government secure account. Do you know what this government secure account is? It's cryptocurrency account. So they'll ask you to withdraw your money from your bank, go to one of these Bitcoin ATM machines, which resembles an ATM machine where you go to withdraw your money, but this one is you're actually putting your money into the fraudster's Bitcoin account. So these funds are promised to be returned once the investigation has been completed, but these funds are lost. So last year, we had 2,483 reports with 391 victims with a total loss of $4.5 million. And now we're jumping to service scam. So, sorry, do you know what? I'll step back here, extortion. So one that's been happening a lot these days is that when a scammer claims to be from your hydro company, so your electricity company, and they demand an immediate payment or the power will be disconnected. So they'll ask for the money to be deposited into a Bitcoin account, or they'll ask for gift cards. So just know that no payment can be made by gift cards. These gift cards are for gifts, presents to your grandchildren, your children, your friends, your neighbors only. It's not to make a payment, okay? Now to service scam. So there's a wide variety of service scams that fall into this pitch. So it could be tech support, where it's a pop-up that shows up on your computer saying that your computer's been infected and you need to call this number to take the virus or the malware out. It could be that your credit card company is calling you and offering low interest rates on your credit card. This is to steal your personal information to then you'll be a victim of identity fraud. Or they can also use your credit card. And it could also be for home repairs and products. So often what happens here is that somebody will show up at your door, the door-to-door, and say, you know, we're in the area, we're doing roofs, I see your roof needs to be changed. You know, instead of $3,000, let's offer you $2,000 because we're in the area. So what happens is people pay deposits and the workers never show up. Or it could be that they're wanting to clean your ducts or your furnace. The work may be done, but it would be low quality or never done at all. So for service scams, we had 1,525 reports with 1,051 victims with a total dollar loss of $4.9 million. And then we go to the bank investigator scam. So the fraudsters inform you that they are investigating unauthorized activity on your bank account. They'll ask you to help them catch the criminal, which they believe to be a bank employee. So they'll ask you to go to the bank and make a cash withdrawal from your account. The fraudster will tell you not to tell the bank teller or anyone, as it may compromise their investigation. They'll also tell the victims that when they are withdrawing funds, to tell the bank teller that it's for home repairs or buying a snowmobile, but not to tell them why, because they believe it's the bank teller that has compromised their account. So there's different variations of this scam. So it could be from your bank, from your credit card company, or even a company like Amazon. So last year, we had 858 reports, 339 victims, and a loss of $2.5 million. So then we jump to the prize scam. So prize scams are when someone contacts you. It could be by mail, email, telephone, social media, or even a website pop-up advising you that you've won a large lottery or a sweepstakes. So the most popular ones here would be Reader's Digest or Publishers Clearinghouse. So before you receive the winnings, there's advance fees. So these fees can be paid by a Bitcoin, gift cards, Western Union, MoneyGram, e-transfer, wire transfer. It could be done in various ways. And these fees would be for legal fees or taxes, or, they'll say that you won $5 million in a Ford truck, but the Ford truck's in the United States, so you need to pay duty. So even if this money is paid, the people never receive the prize. So just know that nobody can purchase a ticket on your behalf. So if you haven't purchased a ticket, you haven't won anything. And in Canada, there are never advance fees to receive a prize. So last year, we had 580 reports, 165 victims with a loss of $2.5 million. Phishing and smishing. So traditional phishing emails and smishing text messages are techniques designed to trick the victim into thinking they're dealing with a trustworthy company. So phishing and smishing messages will direct you to click on a link for various reasons, such as updating your account information, unlocking your account, or accepting a refund. One that we've been seeing often too is from delivery companies. They'll send you an email saying that they tried to deliver a package, you weren't home. Click on this link, pay $1 for the package to be redirected to your home. So there again, it's to steal your personal information. So we had 1,389 reports, 356 victims with no dollar loss. So there's no dollar loss because the phishing smishing scam is there to steal your personal information only. Now we're going to jump to the identity theft. So identity theft happens when a victim's personal information is stolen or compromised. So this can happen by giving personal or financial information in a phishing fraud. It could be a database breach. It could be that you've lost your wallet, etc. And then ID fraud happens when the information is actually used by the fraudster. So they can open bank accounts, apply for credit cards, create fake IDs. They can even reroute your mail. So when they apply for a credit card, they'll use your address, your name, your date of birth, your personal information, and that credit card will be mailed to your home. So that fraudsters are actually contacting Canada Post and redirecting your mail to their mailing address, and not just their mailing address. It could be a mailing address of a house that's for sale and vacant. It could be a vacant lot that has a mailbox at the end of the driveway. It could be anywhere. And something else that they do is they even purchase cell phones, open cell phone accounts. They can take over your financial or social media accounts as well. So here again, victims and reports is the same number, 4,853 with no dollar loss, again, because identity theft is to steal your personal information. Emergency scam. So emergency scam is when the scammer pretends to be someone you know and tell you they need money urgently. So seniors often get caught in this scam because they're worried that a loved one is hurt or in trouble. So I'm actually, so here, 573 reports, 181 victims with $1.9 million. So now I'm going to skip to the next page because the most popular one that is happening right now is the emergency grandparent scam. So for the emergency grandparent scam, the suspect contacts the senior claiming that their grandchild or family member was in an accident and charged with an offense. It could be that they found drugs in the trunk of the car, but it didn't belong to them. It could be that they were speeding and killed somebody. They hit a pregnant lady and she lost her baby. That's one we hear often. So the suspects will claim that they're law enforcement officials, lawyers, and even impersonate their grandchild and family member. And often they don't even know the grandchild's name. They'll just say, "Oh, hi, Papa. It's your eldest grandson. Oh, Noah. Yes. Okay." So now they have the name. So often they're actually stealing the names. The victims are actually giving the names to the fraudsters. And even fraudsters do their research. They're professionals. So they'll even go on social media and look for seniors, find their telephone numbers. But when people post pictures on Facebook, they'll say, "Oh, look at my, my grandson Noah just graduated from college." So boom, the fraudster has your grandson's name. So just be cautious what you post on social media because it could be used to target you. So when this call happens, the grandparent might say, "It doesn't sound like you, Noah." And they'll say, "No, it's because when I was in the car accident, I broke my nose." Or it could be, I have COVID and they had to do a COVID test. So his voice is not the same. So they'll ask for a payment. So the payment could be used for a bail or a fine. It could be lawyer's fees, but it's required immediately in order for the family member to avoid going to jail. Something that is new now is that the grandchild will advise that there's a gag order and not to tell anyone, even the parents, as they don't want to get in trouble. So if the victim agrees to pay, this is the scariest part for me, is that the money is either picked up in person or it'll be sent in the mail. So what they're doing is they're asking the victims to put the money in a book and ship it to them, or in a shoebox with other paper and ship it to them, because money shouldn't be shipped. So they're trying to hide that. Or they'll ask them to put the money in an envelope, under the doormat, and the bondsman will go and pick it up. So just know that if you get one of these calls, don't be afraid to hang up, call your family member, call your local police, and again, call the number that you are familiar with, not the number that has been provided to you. So impact of fraud. So I've personally seen every single one of these, and I've only been with the Canadian Anti-Fraud since 2020. So people can lose their homes, their businesses, they can have reduction in consumer confidence, they can lose their retirement savings. I've seen this many times. They can live in poverty. There's an increased burden on social and government systems, increased burden on family, marital breakups and spousal violence, physical and emotional harm to children, suicide, embarrassment, insurance for family, and depression. So how to protect yourself? There's a long list. I probably said some of these, but I will say it again as I find this is the most important part of my presentation. So never provide personal or financial information by clicking a link or over the telephone unless you initiated the call and you are 100% sure you know who you're talking to. Never trust the phone number or email that you can see, as scammers can disguise the actual one. So this is spoofing. Never share or save passwords, and never use the same password twice. So a little story on this one is that my father uses one of those, those little plastic boxes that we put like recipes in that have it's alphabetical. So my dad uses one of those little boxes to keep all his passwords. So if he changes his password, he takes the little card out, he changes it on the card, he puts it back in. If he forgets his password, he goes to the little box and takes the card out. So never save passwords on your computer either, okay? Next one, if there's just a little bit of doubt and it sounds too good to be true, stop and verify. Don't be afraid to hang up. Never accept money or send money to someone you do not know personally. Never allow an individual to remotely access your computer under circumstance. So often what happens here is that there's a pop-up and there's a virus in the computer, the people call the number, and then they don't know what to do. So the fraudster will say, oh, just give me access to your computer and I'll fix it. They're there to steal your personal information and financial information. So again, delayed disconnect, be sure to wait 10 minutes before calling out if you're on a landline. Know that your credit card company or bank will never ask you to help catch a criminal. Government will not contact you to advise you that your social insurance number has been compromised, nor will they threaten you with legal action or jail time. No government or police will request payment by cryptocurrency, wire transfer, money, service business, or gift cards. No, this is important. No payments can be made by cryptocurrency and gift cards. We see this often. So just know that's very important. And be aware of urgency. If it sounds too urgent, again, a telephone call, a message on social media, contact the source, contact your family member, contact your bank with a number that you are familiar with. And the only way to participate in any lottery is to purchase a ticket, and there are never upfront fees. Never call a telephone number provided by a potential scammer. Use the number that you are familiar with. I know I keep saying this, but that is the most important thing. Hang up, call the number you are familiar with. Always research a company if you're hiring them to do work. Never trust advertising or messages from friends on social media. So a lot of people's accounts are taken over on social media, and fraudsters send message. This can also happen to emails, but they send message to the whole contact list asking them for money, letting them know that they've seen their name on a prize list, or it could be a grant. It could be so many things, but if it sounds a little odd, trust your instincts, contact the source. So if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And be aware of individuals quickly professing their love to you and need to borrow money. So I always say on social media, never accept a friend request from anybody that you never met in person. You know, the romance scam happens so often. So this would be a good pointer for that. And then what to do if you are a victim. So most importantly, gather the information pertaining to the fraud. Contact the two major credit bureaus, Equifax and TransUnion. The reason why we ask to do both is because they are both responsible for different financial institutions. Report the incident to your local law enforcement. Report the incident to the Canadian Anti-Fraud. Review your financial statements and notify them of any suspicious activity. So again, like Ken said, you should be verifying your statements often. The sooner you catch it, the sooner the problem can be resolved. So notify your financial institutions and credit card companies and change the passwords to your online account. So change the passwords to your online account. I would recommend making sure that you use a complicated password and never use the same password twice. A little story. So I had a lady that her Facebook account was compromised. The fraudster had her password. And then a few days later, the fraudster went on Nescafe because the lady had an account on Nescafe. He knew because her email was compromised as well. And he placed a coffee order using her credit card. But because he had the password, she used the password twice in two different places. And if you suspect that your mail has been redirected, notify Canada Post and notify federal and provincial identity document issuing agencies. So if your passport's been compromised, your driver's license, your health card number, call the government and let them know. And that's it. Any questions?
Okay, hold on. Thank you, Stephanie. That was most informative. People are asking to see you.
Hi.
No, they're saying that in order to follow, it's easier when they can see the person and the script is down. Anyway, we're running short on time. Katya is going to ask the questions. So Katya, has any questions come in? Oh, there you are.
No, not really. Stephanie, can you just stop sharing your
question?
Okay, no, you have to put it in the chat box, dear.
I did, okay.
Okay, so I just have one question, Stephanie. So you're saying if your identity gets compromised, you have to contact all these different agencies. So the one question I have is, how long does it take for that to get sorted? If you have an idea.
Through identity theft,
Yeah.
you need to protect yourself for life. Because if one fraudster uses your information and they realize that they can't use it anymore for whatever reason, they will sell that personal information to other fraudsters who will try to target you in a different way. So if the one person is trying, like their goal is to get a credit card and they're not successful, they will sell the information to another fraudster that may try to open a cell phone account. If they can't, they can, sell that information to somebody that creates fake IDs. So it's a lifetime thing. So if you know that your credit card, your personal information has been compromised and used by a fraudster, protect yourself for life. Absolutely.
So I guess I'm just trying to figure out the steps. So if you're a victim, you contact your bank first, and then you contact your local police station, and then they should contact you guys.
Well, it all depends what has been stolen. So if the credit card has been stolen, contact your credit card company. But I would suggest placing alerts with both of the credit bureaus. And there's a fee to this, but I think it's really important that you can monitor your credit, because fraudsters can apply for cell phones and they do a credit check. So it could be stopped. Or if fraudsters try to apply for a credit card, it will be stopped. So something else, because some people can't pay or don't want to pay that fee, is that you can actually monitor it yourself. So go on equifax.ca or transunion.ca and you can monitor your credit yourself. So same, it should be a weekly thing. We verify our bank account statements, our credit card statements, and go on Equifax and TransUnion and verify those as well. If you haven't been compromised, Equifax and TransUnion is not a must. But it's always a good thing. Like personally, my identity's never been stolen and I have signed up for both just to verify, because you never know what can happen.
And then the other question I have is, you were saying that a lot of the scammers call landlines. Is there a phone number or a list from the federal government or provincial governments that people can go on so they don't get cold called?
Yes, so there is the National Do Not Call list. So that you can put your number on. It doesn't stop all of them, but it does stop some of them. So I can give that number. So it's 1-866-580-3625. And that is the National Do Not Call list. And this is a government agency that has created this.
Okay, and I think we have time for one more. Sorry for springing the number on you there, Stephanie.
Oh, do you want me to put it in the chat?
Yeah, if you want to put it on, put it in later, that would be great. Maybe when Brad's doing his presentation.
I'm doing it right now here.
Okay, thanks. So there's a question came in. I'm just trying to figure out how to decipher this. So I think the question is, what are the most important things? Like, what are the red flags that alert us to a potential fraud or scam? Maybe if you just want to repeat that.
So pretty much when there's urgency, be cautious of that. That is the most important one. If they're trying to rush you, if they're telling you to lie, if it sounds too good to be true, just trust your instincts. Like I always say, honestly, hang up. Don't be afraid to hang up. Don't be afraid to delete that email. If it's something that's truly important, they will call back. They'll leave a message. And you can call your financial institution, or you can call Amazon, or you can call Netflix or Canada Post and so on. Don't ever trust a telephone call or an email that you receive.
Okay, I think we're good.
Yeah, I think we are.
Stephanie?
We are on time. So thank you very much, Stephanie. Was most informative. If people want a copy of your presentation, can I give it out, or is that more for internal use?
Yeah, you can provide the copy of the presentation, but we do have the fraud prevention package that I think I sent to you, and that can be shared with everybody. Absolutely. And I think that fraud prevention package should be shared with everybody. And I would ask everybody to share it again with your family, friends, neighbors, other seniors at the seniors group, at the church, wherever, because I think education is the key to prevention, and more that our information can be out there, the less the people will be frauded.
Okay, perfect. And I will do that, but I'm going to re-emphasize. Do not send me messages in the chat box saying you want this report, that report. Please email me, because once we close, it's gone. And I won't be able to, I haven't got time to copy down everybody's email and name. So please email me. You all have it, as you had to register with me. So you've got my email. So thank you, Stephanie. This was marvelous. And now, without further ado, our very last but not least presenter, who I'm delighted to have, is Brad Russell with the Competition Bureau of Canada. He's a senior competition law officer in the Deceptive Marketing Practices Directorate of the Competition Bureau. Brad has been with the Competition Bureau for 16 years, and as a team leader in the Montreal office, yay, Brad leads both criminal and civil deceptive marketing investigations. Prior to joining the Montreal office in 2016, Brad was a supervisor in the Mergers Directorate in Toronto, where he reviewed the competitive implications of mergers and acquisitions in Canada. Holy Toledo, Brad, do you have to say this every day?
I do. Yeah, it's taken me 16 years to nail it. You're doing great, Ruth.
Well, thank you very much. You're very kind. I personally know of the Competition Bureau of Canada because Seniors Action Quebec for many years heard about you through some connections with the federal government. And we were delighted to be able to get your little black book on scams and get multiple copies back in the good days. And we would give them out in our conferences. Now people can still order it, but it's to, well, go on their website and download it, and you can have a digital copy, or if you need to, you can get your printer to make copies for you. Money is tight everywhere, and you know, I understand, but it's a marvelous little book. And so I'm looking forward to hearing what you're going to tell me about everything that the Competition Bureau can do for us, and the types of deceptive marketing practices you encounter, and what are the resources that are available to us. So without further ado from me, Brad, I'm turning it right over to you, and thank you for doing this for us.
Well, thank you, Ruth, for the reaching out to the Competition Bureau and making this possible today. I really appreciate that. Hi, everyone. Bonjour. My name is Brad. As Ruth said, I work in the Montreal office of the Competition Bureau, and I've been here for 6 years. I'm really happy to be with you this morning. There's been a lot of great information shared by Ken and Stephanie today. I know it's a lot to take in. There are all types of tips. We're all working at multiple levels to try to inform you of what you can do to prevent fraud from happening, and also, you know, the steps you can take when it does happen to report it to the right agency so that we can take action. So this is something that I'm really passionate about. It's such an important topic, very near and dear to my heart, as I work to combat deceptive marketing practices daily in my job at the Competition Bureau. So the techniques around fraud and deceptive marketing are constantly changing. And so I'll just echo what Stephanie said towards the end of the presentation. It's just saying, the more that we can talk about them, the more that we can help prevent them. So again, I would encourage you to share anything you learned from my presentation about the Competition Bureau or other things you've heard today with others. And please, if you have the time, take the 15 minutes to report the fraud, either to the local police, the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center, or to the Competition Bureau, as you'll hear in a few moments, because all of that filters up to the law enforcement agencies, where we make decisions on which investigations to pursue. And we want to hear which ones are going to have the biggest impact, what's affecting people in Canada right now. And we base those decisions on the intel that we get from the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center and other agencies that comes from folks like you that have taken the time to report it. So the more you report, the better that can be filtered up and the more active we can be in terms of law enforcement agencies with limited budgets in terms of having our impact to trying to stop it at the source. So I have 15 minutes with you today, and I want to try and leave you with 3 main takeaways. I see Katya is getting the presentation up. Thank you very much. We can just keep it on this slide for 1 second. My main goal is one of the first takeaways is to tell you a little bit about the Competition Bureau. I'm sure there's a lot of people on the line that have no idea who the Competition Bureau is. I'm hopeful in 15 minutes, we can change that. I'm also hopeful that you'll have a better idea of some of the scams that we investigate and other types of deceptive marketing investigations that we do. And I'll talk about, again, reiterate some of the ones targeting seniors to leave you with that. And at the end, the last point I want to leave you with is some additional resources, because this has been a lot of information, some sites that you can perhaps look at on your own time to continue to stay informed. Katya, we'll go to the next slide. So really quickly, this is a standard disclaimer that we use, that the views and opinions expressed in this position, including any answers to any questions, are entirely my own. Do not necessarily represent any policies or positions of the Commissioner of Competition, the Competition Bureau, or the Government of Canada. Great, let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so who is the Competition Bureau? So we are an independent law enforcement agency. We are part of the federal government. I am a federal government employee, and there are approximately 400 of us located in 4 offices across Canada. Our headquarters is in Gatineau, Quebec. We also have offices in Montreal, Toronto, and in Vancouver. So our primary responsibility at the Competition Bureau is to enforce what's called the Competition Act. So this is federal government legislation. And the act covers a variety of different behaviors, specifically reviewing mergers and acquisitions from a competition point of view. What Ruth mentioned in my bio, I did that for 10 years in Toronto and in Gatineau. That's basically resulting to make sure there's no monopolies developing in any specific sectors of the economy. We also have provisions related to abuse of dominance by main firms. So large companies taking advantage of the fact that they're large to suppress competition in other areas. We also have a cartels division, which deals with price fixing and bid rigging. These things are directly related to, in Quebec, the Charbonneau Commission on bid rigging, public contracts for everything on types of infrastructure. So we have a cartels directorate located here in Montreal and in other offices. And last but not least, the deceptive marketing practices where I work. So we work closely with Stephanie's team at the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre to get the intel necessary, as I mentioned, to be able to direct our investigations so that we can have the highest impact possible with the resources that we have. In addition to enforcing the Competition Act, and I'll talk about how we do that, but in addition to that, we also provide advocacy pieces to other levels of government or departments in how to further allow for more competition. Are there areas in the economy where we could relax some restrictions so that more competition can play and to the benefit of consumers like you and myself? So go to the next slide, please. So this slide, if you can see it, maybe I know it's a little bit small, but I just wanted to highlight some of the news clippings that are related to the Competition Bureau that you may have seen in the last few years. I'll start on the bottom left-hand corner. Competition Bureau wants full block of Rogers Shaw deal. So that is a mergers case that we are currently litigating in court because the Competition Bureau believes that that deal will substantially lessen or prevent competition. So you may have been hearing about the Rogers Shaw deal and the federal government taking action to try and block it. That would be the Competition Bureau. I'd also like to draw your attention to the bottom right. 7 companies committed indictable offenses in bread price fixing scandal. So these are allegations that there's been a bread cartel, as the media has talked about it. So there have been numerous grocery companies that have allegedly conspired to fix the price of bread to increase that price for consumers. So that is an ongoing investigation as well in the Cartels Directorate of the Competition Bureau. Now, closer to my home base is right in the middle. I'll talk about that just for 1 second. Flight Hub banned from false or misleading marketing during Competition Bureau probe. So this is a Montreal-based company, an investigation that was indirectly involved with. And last year, the Competition Bureau concluded that Flight Hub made millions of dollars in revenue in charging hidden fees and misled consumers on their websites, flighthub.com, justfly.com, about the costs and terms associated with a range of services. So this is one of the investigations that is directly in my home territory here in Montreal that relates to false or misleading marketing that the Competition Bureau has taken enforcement action in. So next slide, please. Perfect, thank you. So having a little bit of fun here. If you can't quite make that out, on the cartoon on the left says, hey, Cheryl, I can actually see myself losing weight, as there's an automatic machine there pulling money out of their back pocket. And on the right-hand side, just to read it out for you, there's what looks like an employer saying, we'll hire you at the rate of $100 per hour. The person on the other side of the desk is, great, when do I start? And the response is, when you start paying us. So that makes reference to job employment scams, where they trick you in thinking that there's actually an employment opportunity, but they ask for payment up front for that opportunity to be played out. So as I mentioned, I'm an officer in the Deceptive Marketing Practices Directorate, and we're tasked with fulfilling the Bureau's mandate to ensure truth in advertising, which leads to important benefits in the economy. It leads to more informed consumer choice, so people like you can properly compare products and make decisions on which ones you think is the best fit for you. And you can rely upon the representations and the advertising being made about those products and what they're actually supposedly going to do for you. A unique aspect of our work in deceptive marketing is that we have both civil and criminal investigations. So depending on the type of behavior we're investigating, we can decide whether we want to pursue a civil or a criminal path, and both paths have different outcomes, which I'll talk about next. Next slide, please. Katia, I don't know if you can remove the notes on the bottom just by clicking on the little tag, just to remove the note section, and then we'll be able to better see the slide.
It's literally the one at the bottom saying notes?
Yeah, I think if you click
okay,
that,
great. That's what I was looking for. Okay, thanks.
No problem. If you can click that, maybe we'll be able to see it a little bit better. There we go. Maybe we make that a little bit bigger. Perfect. Thank you. Team effort here.
Thanks, Brad. Not going to lie, my heart rate went up a little bit. Thanks.
No problem. Appreciate your support on this. So if we could, Katia, if you made that a little bit smaller, that would be great. But what I want to talk about here is the civil provisions of the Competition Act. So there is a prohibition against making a representation to the public that is false or misleading in a material respect when promoting our product or business interest. So basically what this means, if I could simplify this, is that you cannot lie or mislead people in your marketing. Now, marketing isn't trying to encourage you that you need this product. But in doing that, there's a line. You cannot, and we're saying on the Competition Act, if you're making representations or advertising that is false about the product or the service, or misleading about what your product or service does, and that's material that has a significant impact, then you may be contravening the Competition Act. So to give you an example of this, a few years ago, I worked on a car rental case. And what you might see in car rentals at that time is that they say, you can rent a car for $30 a day on the weekend. Great, it's on their website. It's in their pamphlets. But when you go as a consumer on their website and you say, okay, I want the $30 a day deal, I'm going to click it. And I'm going to work through the click process to register and sign up to book this car. What we found is by the time you got to the end of that process, the companies, and there wasn't just one, there was numerous car rental companies doing this as a behavior, were adding fees along the click process. And these were mandatory, but they were fees that the company itself was imposing on you. So at the end of the day, when you were going to book that final car rental, the price was no longer $30 a day plus tax. It had become closer to $45 or even $50 a day, because there's mandatory fees that the company sometimes labeled as, cost recovery or winter tire fee or registration fee, $10 here, $5 there, $10 here. What the Competition Bureau alleged is that they were misleading you up front, thinking you could get a car for $30 a day. At the end of the day, nobody could, because these fees were required. And we said, no, that's not going to fly under the Competition Act, because you're misleading consumers. We went after those companies and we signed agreements with them over the period of numerous years. And those companies paid about $6 million in penalties to the Canadian government. And in addition, they changed their behavior. So you will no longer see those fees advertised in a drip portion when you're signing up for car rental. So that's an example of a civil case, the civil investigations that we had against car rental companies in Canada, and a lot of those were led out of the Montreal office. I want to highlight on this slide before we move forward that the penalties can be significant for companies if they're contravening the Competition Act. So the max penalty, it can be up to $10 million for businesses, 3 times the value of the benefit, or 3% of worldwide gross revenue. So the maximum penalties for infringing on this part of the Competition Act can be very significant. For individuals, it can be up to $750,000 in the first instance, or up to 3 times the value of the benefit obtained. So these are calculations on basically the penalties for these companies if they contravene the Competition Act, and they can get significant very quickly. Let's move to the next slide, please. So let's talk about the criminal provisions. So this is very similar to the civil provisions, but it says no person shall knowingly or recklessly make a representation that is false or misleading in a material respect. So the addition here that makes it criminal is the knowingly and recklessly piece. In kind of layperson terms, what does that mean? Is that you purposefully made these representations trying to mislead people. You knowingly did it, or you were so reckless on how you're running your business that you have no oversight in terms of the ads that were misleading or false, that it should have been on your responsibility to correct those from the first place. You can be guilty of a criminal offense under the Competition Act for either making or causing to be made these representations if you can knowingly and recklessly are making them. So what does that mean? Well, these also can be significant fines. If you look at the last bullet on the screen, the indictable offenses can carry up to 14 years in prison. That is the same amount of time that you will see on a murder charge in Canada. Under the deceptive marketing, you can face up to 14 years in prison, or fines to the discretion of the court, or both, depending on the behavior. So to give you a local example, Montreal has unfortunately long been known as the telemarketing capital in North America. This dates back a number of years, but then there's a number of different reasons for that. But there are a lot of false or misleading calls and telemarketers that have operated in my backyard here in Montreal that are targeting people all over Canada and all over the US. The Competition Bureau has taken significant action in these cases. We have the ability to get search warrants. We often work with local police and the RCMP to execute search warrants on these businesses. We show up unannounced with a warrant that allows us to take information that is covered in the warrant for the purposes of our investigation that may lead to criminal charges if we find that they have contravened the Competition Act. So these investigations are significant in scope. They sometimes take years to complete, because we are seizing images of computers and databases and going through all of that to figure out who is behind this operation, how much money did they make. We work with the banks. We'll contact banks like Ken's Bank and send them production orders so that we can follow the money. Where is this money ending up? Is it staying at this company, or is it going to certain individuals? So we want to take our time and do it thoroughly so that we can refer our cases for prosecution in the best that we can. So next slide, please. I'd like to spend a minute here talking about what have we been doing during COVID-19. We've been doing a lot is the short answer. We've been sending all types of warning letters out to companies and businesses, a lot of particularly small businesses that are making claims related to their products and how they may prevent COVID-19 infections in people. And we've seen it in all types of products. We have seen it in natural health products, beeswax candles, scented oils, and companies are making representations that if you use their products in your home, you will be able to prevent the spread of an infectious disease. That is false. We are reminding those companies of their obligations under the Competition Act not to make those unsupported claims. And we've seen a significant impact where they've removed them immediately because they understand the repercussions if they don't under the Competition Act. So we've been on a letter sending mission across Canada, across the last few years, and we've been seeing some significant results to try and reduce the misleading advertising in Canada related to COVID-19. Next slide, please. So scams targeting seniors. There's been a lot of great information from Ken and Stephanie on these points, so I'm not going to reiterate it. What I do say is it maybe pull on the vulnerability piece a little bit, is that why these scams work so well is they pull on our human nature, that we care about other people. We care about our families. We care about our loved ones or new loved interests. And they prey on people's vulnerability. They're lonely, they're seeking connection. And the people that they care about the most, they'll go to miles end to try and protect them. So I just want to reiterate the fact that these people that undertake these scams, they're aware of that and they use that to their advantage. So if we can empower ourselves by being aware, if we're getting emotional responses and feeling triggered that we need to take action immediately because somebody called us or we got an email, if we can find a way within ourselves to take a pause, ask someone else, does this seem legit? Like, ask around a little bit and just take a few minutes to reflect on that. That can break the fear that comes up and overwhelms us with our emotions, and to get us back in a rational mind to say, actually, wait a second, something doesn't feel right about this. So I would encourage you, like Stephanie and Kenneth said, take 5 minutes, think it over, put on your investigative hat. What would someone at the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center tell me about this? How would they think about this? What did that Brad guy say about vulnerability and those emotions around these scams? What if I take a few minutes to look at this email? There's a typo here, or they misspelled this here, or the text here doesn't look like an image that I would usually find in this types of email. Put on your investigative hat and get critical around these scams. That'll help, and it'll help take some space to reflect and prevent these from spreading. I'll move to wrap up here pretty quickly, but we also see at this time of year a lot of investment scams, a lot of miracle cures or the best Christmas gift for your child, your grandchild, for your spouse. They're creating a sense they can create a sense of fear of missing out, that you need to buy this gift now. This is your last opportunity to get it. Be wary of those types of marketings, especially during this time of year around the holidays that are filled with all types of emotions. Try and take some space and think it over and think about whether that marketing is actually potentially trying to mislead you in some way, shape, or form over the next few weeks, especially. I'll move on to the next slide. This is my last point here, but I just want to leave you with some additional resources. So the Competition Bureau's website has some great resources there, great materials if you want to further some reading on anything that I've talked about. There's also our own complaint form. We do communicate with the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center. So if you're filing complaints, don't necessarily have to file them with both, but we also have our own complaint form on there. And those materials, the Little Black Book of Scams, Deceptive Marketing Digest, Fraud Prevention Month is coming up in March. We work with our other partners to make sure that we get the messages out there, but there's some great materials that you can take on at your own leisure. Last slide, please. There we go. That is it. So I will thank you for your time and your patience. I'm happy to open up to any questions.
Brad, thank you ever so much. And I love the aspect that you touched upon, our vulnerability and loneliness. And I think it's a very important thing. And we're rushed this time of year as well. And they always know when to call when it's a bad time. But I appreciate all your information. So I'm going to turn it over immediately to Katya, who may have some questions for you. and then I'll come back and do a wrap up.
Hey, Brad. Okay, so the first question is, one of the perceived price fixings that seems to be ongoing is fuel price, but yet does not seem to be investigated. Are we just paranoid, or is it something else?
Great question. This comes up, I can assure you that we get media requests on retail gas, if not daily, weekly at the Competition Bureau. There have been significant actions taken by the Competition Bureau related to retail gasoline. So this is not just, there has been price fixing in the past. It's a market that the Competition Bureau is very much aware of. There are a lot of expertise internally. So, you know, I can't speak about any specific cases or actions that we're currently undertaking, but it is a topic that we're very much aware of at the Competition Bureau. And unfortunately, I have to leave it at that for today.
The other question I had is in your before the last slide, you were talking about travel false deals. Do you have examples of those?
Yeah, well, I mean, I wanted to mention the company at the beginning of Flight Hub, where we had a consent agreement with them for their false and misleading advertising. What they were advertising, in my recollection, is that you would see a price up front of a deal, and it would seem very competitive in marketing. So if you put in a flight, I want to fly from Montreal to Vancouver on this week, you might see some ads coming up from them in Google with certain prices. And when you click through that process, it wasn't necessarily the end price that you would be paying. And so this is the difficulty with consumers. And I don't want to talk about that company in specific anymore, but when you're doing online searching for prices, there's so many different ways you can do that. And it's not, you're not always comparing apples to apples, because they might give you one price and you think, oh, that's a great price. But when you click through the process, they're adding other fees onto it. At the end of the day, it's not a great price anymore. So I would encourage you, just try to do your homework and do your research on travel, especially. Make sure you're using reputable websites and making sure you're taking your time and not feeling rushed that you need to book a flight immediately. Because when we're in those types of situations, we often make mistakes, or maybe find ourselves onto sites that, you know, maybe with some hindsight, maybe weren't you know, as professional looking as others, and we can get stuck in travel deals there that might not actually get us to that trip where we want to go
on. So I don't know if you can answer this question. It's a bit, this just to piggyback on the fuel price fixing. And I'm using this, you know, cautiously. It's the same thing with what appears to be happening in the supermarkets with prices for food. Seems to be something's happening. I don't know. Can you comment about that, or?
Again, a little bit, yeah, because we were very much aware of that at the Competition Bureau, and we just a few weeks announced that we were going to be doing a study of the grocery sector to understand the competitive dynamics happening within that sector. There have been a number of news reports that saying inflation is hitting Canadians hard. We're all feeling that in the wallet. But when you look, and there's been some investigative reporting on the grocery stores in particular, there's some questions being asked of, it seems like your prices are going up higher than your input costs. And so is there a disconnect there where the price is actually going higher than inflation is actually, and such that they're making more profits during this difficult time because of that? So the Competition Bureau recently announced, and you can find this on our website, that we will be doing a study of the grocery sector to better understand what's happening, the different competitive dynamics happening within it.
Very cool. There's another question that people, sorry, I'm reading, so I'm not looking. People appear to be hesitant to report, you know, falling for a scam or fraud because they feel embarrassed. Is how much does psychology go in people reporting or not reporting? I see Stephanie's got her hand up as well, so I don't know if you want to
oh my God.
it.
You know, I just want to add to that, Brad, and I apologize for cutting in, but you know, with the Canadian anti-fraud, you can report anonymously. You can report on behalf of somebody else. You don't need to say who you are, telephone number, nothing. All we want to know is the fraudster's information. So we don't even, like, no phone number, no email address, nothing, anonymously. We don't know who you are. You don't know who we are. You just report what has happened. And if you know that it's happened to your neighbor, your loved one, you can report it to us, and the filer and the victim can be anonymous. So it doesn't matter.
And I would thanks, Stephanie. No, I appreciate that. I would add on to that it's a huge issue. And because we don't want to signal to anyone that we've been taken advantage of. You have to show that you've been vulnerable, that you signed up for something, or you clicked on a link that you shouldn't have. So absolutely, people feel embarrassed. I'm here to tell you that there were so many people across Canada that are being scammed across all age groups. We're here talking with seniors today, but we could be having the exact same conversation with people in their teens, in their 20s. The way in which they're getting scammed is going to be different. How much money they're losing is also might be different, but it's happening across the board. So collectively, we have nothing to be ashamed about in terms of reporting it. And in fact, reporting it empowers yourself to actually protect your community by giving us access to the information of what's actually happening out there. And to add on to Stephanie's point, yes, you can report anonymously. From the Competition Bureau's end, when I receive those reports, I appreciate having someone's name, their phone number, and their email where I can reach out and contact you. Because if we're going to be doing criminal prosecutions, oftentimes in those prosecutions, we really want to tell the story of the people and need witnesses that have been misled or taken advantage of to come to court with us to testify. And so I might be interviewing you, and I would love to interview to hear what happened. How did this come about? What did they say? And for you to potentially, if you're open to it, at some point be able to say that in front of a judge or a jury, could get some sentencing restrictions against people that are causing these harm that may have a deterrent effect in fraud in general in Canada. So yes, there's the option to stay anonymous. If you're open to it, if you're open to putting your name, I would encourage you to do that, because that allows us to do a lot more with that information as an investigator. And it really plays out in court later if we ever get there.
So data is key to everything.
Yes.
Cool.
For
Thanks,
scammers
Brad.
and for law enforcement agencies, unfortunately. Yes.
Hey, it's all about counterbalance.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, I think there's just one more question. Hold on, I'm just reading it. Oh yeah, there you go. Great question. How can we be protected from fraudsters outside of Canada?
Great question. I think a lot of the tips apply regardless of where the person causing the fraud is located. So everything that Stephanie and Ken talked about, and I've talked about how to protect yourself, all of that applies from people outside of the country trying to get money from people within the country. Having said that, from the enforcement angle, it's quite different on how we investigate cases based on where the targets are located. So if the victims are in Canada, we work with our international counterparts, whether that's the US, the Federal Trade Commission, the Department of Justice, or the state attorney generals in the US, where we can collaborate with them to do joint investigations. And then we can expand that out globally through the RCMP. We are in a partnership in Quebec where we have numerous other law enforcement agencies that have footprints all over the world, whether it's the FBI, the Secret Service. There are a lot of agencies in the US and globally that are looking into these types of investigations. And so we coordinate amongst law enforcement agencies to figure out who's going to take the lead on this. Do you have capacity? What support do you need? And so even if it's not in our backyard or where the targets are located, we're flagging other jurisdictions and working with them so that they can put an end to the harm.
I can't agree more with Brad. 100% true with them. For us, we can share the information internationally, so it's good.
Okay, for sake of time, I think Katya, if there's no other questions,
No, we're good, Ruth. We're good.
Okay, so just a little wrap up. First of all, Katya, thank you for all the technical expertise and managing the questions.
Apologies for the glitches. Zoom was not cooperating with me on my end. And Brad, thank you, because I could not remember how to remove comments. So thanks.
Well, it's in the atmosphere. It's one of those cloudy, dreary days. I cannot thank Ken, Stephanie, and Brad enough, because the reams and reams of information that you've provided us today is only more knowledge for us to fight and protect ourselves. But also, if we knew some of it, hopefully it's a refresher right before this very busy time of the year when we're watching our dollar, but we want to give and we feel guilty about not giving, and we're online shopping and we're in the stores. So I think the timing couldn't have been better, and I really appreciate all that you've given us. And I'm sure everybody else will. I will watch for emails and send out presentations and do that. But what I want to remind you, all the registrants, you're going to receive the copy of the link for this recording. It'll go out to you in 2-3 days. As I mentioned when we first started, I ask you to please fill out the survey that will be attached and submit it back. It's only going to take you a couple of minutes because that's most important for our funder to enable us to keep bringing these webinars to you. And to remind you, while I have you all on the line, that February the 7th, same time, it's going to be a webinar on knowing your consumer rights with Richard Goldman, who is a lawyer with Éducaloi. And on March the 14th, estate planning and settling of an estate. And it's not just talking about wills. It's going to be talking about what you should do, revisiting your will, but also if you're a liquidator, what are the documents that you need? What are the deadlines and where do you find them? So it's much more involved. And we will have 2 lawyers and a financial advisor on for that session. And that's March the 14th. So you can register by emailing me anytime now. I've already got people that have registered for both. And since we're giving you a bit of a break for December and January, let me, on behalf of Seniors Action Quebec, to wish you all a safe, happy, and a peaceful holiday season. And hopefully we will see some of you back on February the 7th. So have a great week, and thanks everybody for sticking with us. And Ken, Stephanie, Brad, thanks once again. We couldn't have done it without you.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Ruth.
We have a mutual friend, Brad, Megan.
Yes, we do. Indeed.
Small world.
It is indeed. Thanks again.